Hello, everyone, and welcome to the February edition of the Modern Workplace Windows and Devices call. My name is Willie Mall, Partner Technology Solution. I'm sorry, PTS, Partner Technology Strategist with Microsoft. We'll kick off the call. I just wanted to ask a quick question to make sure that you're able to hear audio. It says, I just scarfed down a pizza for lunch. If you could, in the message window, type whether you prefer sausage, pepperoni, or just plain cheese as a topping on your pizza. That'll let me know that you're able to hear us and that audio is coming through. Cheese, yes, okay, cool. All right, I do see some responses coming through. If you have any issues with the seeing the presentation moving, it's a good practice to refresh your browser. The other thing is if you have any issues with video, I did provide the conference information in the message window as well. So with that being said, this call is being recorded. So if you do have any issues being recorded, this would be a good time to drop. We will have the presentation slides available via our Yammer community shortly after the call, and then the call recording will also be available on our YouTube channel in a day or two after the call. Normally that takes a little bit longer to get posted, but I provided links to both of those in the message window as well. Throughout the presentation, you're able to ask questions in the message window, and then I'll be able to ask those questions to the presenter during breaks in the presentation. So feel free to ask questions that come up during the presentation. Lastly, I wanted to, before I pass things off, I wanted to go over two quick slides. The first one here is announcing our technical communities that we have available through OCP One Commercial Partner. The Modern Workplace one is the one that I'm involved with. I wanted to let you guys know that each solution area has their own monthly call. So Modern Workplace, we actually have 3 monthly calls: productivity, security, and then Windows and devices. And then the third month of every quarter, we have a quarterly update call. So we just have one in the third month of every quarter. So our March call will just be a quarterly update call where we go over key announcements that were made over the last quarter. Business applications, if that's of interest, they have their call every second Tuesday. And here's a link to register for those calls. Apps and infrastructure. Their call is held every third Friday. Data and AI hosts their call every first Friday, and then Open Source Solutions hosts their call every fourth Friday. I provided the links there to go ahead and register for their calls as well. Next thing I wanted to touch on is the resources that we have for Modern Workplace, as well as some of the other solution areas. But upcoming partner training is available via aka.ms Hot Sheet News, and that actually lists all the training for all solution areas, not just Modern Workplace. Our Modern Workplace technical Yammer community, this is where we post announcements as well as call recording, the call decks, presentation decks, and things of that nature. Our registration call registration link, and then also our community blog. So we'll post 1 to 3 blogs on a monthly basis, and then you're able to access those blogs via that link there. And it's not just for Modern Workplace; it's actually for all of our solutions areas as well. So without further ado, I want to get us to the main topic area and introduce Frank Buckles, who will actually go into Windows Autopilot.
All right. Thanks, Willie. I'm going to request control here.
Yes.
And I'm going to attempt to share my desktop. All right, looks like you can see it. So welcome everyone. I'm Frank Buchholz. I'm on the Microsoft Surface commercial marketing team. I'm a technical lead for the Surface product, and with a lens towards modern manageability, as well as just how does the Surface product fit into the overall modern workplace stream. So today we're going to be talking about Autopilot, and the Autopilot particularly for Surface, but know that each of the OEMs out there, like Dell, Lenovo, HP, they're all following along with their own channel program towards enabling their channel towards selling Autopilot and enabling it within the modern manageability framework. But you'll likely not see much from them until this summertime. Right now, most of the players in that space have a direct motion for Autopilot deployments, and they're kind of piloting Autopilot themselves. And then you'll see likely when we hit like the Inspire timeframe where we all come together in Las Vegas, you'll see likely OEMs talking much more about Autopilot at that point from a channel perspective. I'm happy to take any questions around other OEMs. I don't think I'll have too many answers, but I do sit on a number of Windows work streams that include OEM, so I'm happy to try to field some things, but I don't have too much detail towards the other pieces. I know a bit about Surface, though. So today we'll talk about Surface, but keep this in mind that when we're talking about Surface and Autopilot, we're really talking about Windows Autopilot and the overall capabilities of the tool or the offering. So let's get right into it. So today, when you're looking at classic IT versus modern IT, on the classic IT side, you see a lot of manual processes, you see business-owned devices, you see people with single devices, high touch because there has to be some degree of corporate imaging or a gold image that's placed onto the device. Likely that device needs to sit on the corporate network when it's imaged in order to receive information. It's managed more through some on-prem capabilities like config manager or system center manager as we call them, and different components, where modern manageability looks more like people have multiple devices. Every device looks similar in nature as to the files and capabilities and the applications that run on them. Everything is a little bit more self-service and automated, and it's cloud managed comparatively. Now, as we move into the future, we certainly see these hybrid models where you'll have on-premises capabilities as well as modern manageability capabilities, and we have this mixture. But where we're trying to get to is this idea where if we look at the old way of doing things where you have to build a custom image and gather everything necessary to deploy it, and in some cases like a Surface device, you have to deploy device drivers and other things through MSIs after the device already has a corporate image on top of it. It requires quite a bit of work and overwriting what was originally on it. And so that equals a lot of time and money when it comes to the investment, both from a partner perspective and a customer perspective as well, because if there's a lot of unpackaging of the device and reimaging and repackaging, and then getting the device into the hands of the customer, that slows down the process of the time it takes to get there, and then the images are constantly changing, and so management of those is difficult and time consuming, and it's an expense to the customer ultimately. So towards that, what we're trying to move towards is this new way of modern deployment, where essentially the customer or the end user can unbox and turn on the off-the-shelf Windows PC, meaning that it's come straight from the factory to the end user without any interception or unpackaging and reimaging and all these different pieces. And this can happen in the enterprise. It feels a lot like a consumer type of interaction where they just simply go into the store and buy a device and go home and unpack it. Well, this should be fairly similar to them, of that they could deploy the device essentially from a Starbucks or from a LTE connection somewhere, and then they can essentially transform that with little to no interaction in order to get the device. And so as we're moving in these new ways of modern manageability, we very much want to focus on these cloud-driven experiences. Certainly there's still simple IT pieces that are out there where you can use Windows Configuration Designer, WCD, in order to create custom, like a USB stick that could put a custom package and get you through deployment quickly, or there's teacher-driven pieces where they set up through USB keys and other things. But what we're working towards is this cloud-driven capability where pre-registered devices can be registered in the cloud, and they can have no intervention at all in order to get into the hands of the end user. And so through that, we introduced this idea of Windows Autopilot. It's 3 simple steps. It's essentially registering the devices. For you, that's through a tool called Partner Center, which hopefully you're using today as CSPs that are out there. You assign a profile onto the device, and then you ship the device to the end user. So we'll go into a lot more detail into that in just a second, but that is all part of this much larger Windows 10 modern manageability capability to lower the total cost of ownership with Microsoft 365. And so within there, now we're looking at how Surface, in this particular case, plays a role within here when, how do we simplify management and security? How do we make sure the device is always up to date? How do we allow self-service deployment to take place? And then how do we gain proactive insights into the capabilities of what's being deployed? And we do all of that through the Microsoft Cloud, through Windows, Office, and EMS capabilities. And so what you'll see is Autopilot, while Autopilot is very simple in its nature, what it really is that it allows for a much greater integration into this modern manageability ecosystem that Windows and M365 have built out. And so as we move into this space, what we see is Autopilot for Surface, and you could replace that with Autopilot for any OEM, but it's essentially modern device lifecycle management. And so we go from this Microsoft M365 cloud, and we introduce this concept of Autopilot service. And so Autopilot service, as like I described, is very simple in how it's used, but it draws on much larger tools, right? So it draws on tools like Intune. Now you could certainly use a different MDM that's out there, a mobile device manager, but of course, Microsoft, certainly would like to see you use Intune towards that and your customers in that manner. But it requires Azure Active Directory in order to work. And so within that, there's also this ability, because devices from, say, Microsoft, like Surface, come pre-installed with the trial version of Office, it's very easy to deploy those components as well. And of course, in the back end, if you're using Office 365, a component of M365, then of course you're using Exchange Services, Identity, and all these other components that make up that entire M365 piece. So Autopilot just is that gateway to accessing these back-end infrastructures. Now, we do support third-party MDMs within Autopilot. A customer could be using AirWatch or Mobile Iron or any of the other major MDMs that are out there. We realize that Intune is not the dominant factor of MDMs that are existent. So there is a capability to use third-party MDMs with Autopilot as well, and we'll go through essentially how that works. But to begin with, the way that we talk about Surface and other OEMs would be that we look at Surface as, being able to ship today out of our factory. And so we're shipping Surface devices with Windows 1709, which is also called RS3, or is also called the Fall Creators Update. Kind of many different names, but they all come down to one bottom line, Windows 1709. And so we need 1709 because it holds a special, what we call 4K hash, which identifies the device and is kind of key to how Autopilot works. But as we get these devices, essentially the concept is that a customer says, hey, I need a bunch of Surfaces. And so they come to you as a partner to say, if you're already selling Surface or if you're interested, certainly let's talk after this call. But along that line, they come and say, hey, I need Surfaces, or in many cases, I just need a device, right? And so within there, the CSP partner yourself steps in and says, hey, I can help with that. I can not only sell you M365 licenses, but I can also sell you devices. And because of the power of now distribution, in the past where a CSP may not have wanted to be in the hardware game, now they don't need to be in the hardware game, but they can still transact hardware much like they transact the license. Because in what we'll point out is that the device is going to ship straight to the customer and the end user and never need to come through your doors in order for you to manage and inventory and logistics and all those heavy lifting, literally, pieces behind it. And so the CSP partner takes this a list of serial numbers that they've received from the factory, and they go into a tool called Partner Center, which hopefully you're well aware of. And so Partner Center essentially gives you the capability to move up to an Azure AD environment and build a trust relationship with the customer. And so the customer is now allowing you access into their Azure AD environment. So through Partner Center, you are enrolling the serial numbers that you receive from the factory and creating essentially a group of devices up in the cloud in that customer's Azure AD tenant. They in turn can see that enrollment of those devices through their Microsoft Store for Business. And then they can apply policy, or they can apply the different pieces. They can apply Intune policies onto those devices that are on there, so that when the device finally arrives at the customer, as you'll see in just a second, let me actually, what you'll actually see is that when the employee wants to receive their device, what happens is that from Intune, it starts to push down like the corporate profile and the user privileges and the Windows 10 enterprise license, because it can convert it from pro to enterprise. And it can do all of the different policies and settings and applications that are available today through tools like Intune or other MDMs that are out there. So again, Autopilot is just a layer for more of the registration and the enrollment, and either through Partner Center or through the Microsoft Store for Business, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But for you, the main vehicle in this case is Partner Center, and the ability to take a group of serial numbers, enroll them into Partner Center, create a profile or create a group of users or a group of devices, and then allow the customer to apply policy through Intune. Now, you may already also be managing the customer's environment from a much larger capacity. You may be actually managing their Intune environment as well, so that you're the one that says, hey, not only does the customer say I need Surfaces, but I need Surfaces for my accounting team that I'm expanding. And so in this particular case, they're going to say, hey, since you're already managing my Azure AD environment, why don't you go ahead and enroll those 10 devices that I'm buying from you for those accountants, but also place an accountant profile that's created in Intune onto those devices, because those are all the powers that you have within Partner Center in order to do that. And so within that, once the employee or the new accountant gets their device, they get a device that you're managing at a much higher level than just shipping and selling them a piece of hardware. So towards that, as we move on, we get into this what we call steady state usage, where we have a lot of different options that are available to us. We can power wash and essentially go through this entire process once again through Partner Center. We could de-enroll the device. We could actually place and re-enroll it, and we could place a new profile on it from Intune, so that when the device is actually rebooted, after being reset, it comes back to what we call UBI, and then a whole new profile is placed onto it for a whole different employee. And all of that can be done again through this cloud-based management system that's available through Partner Center or the Microsoft Store for Business, and incorporating MDMs like Intune out there. We can certainly deprovision the device, and we can do warranty replacement as well, so that each device has what we call a 4K hash to it, like a fingerprint to it. And that is identified within Microsoft's, AAD infrastructure. And so because of that, if you were to say ship a device off to get warranty replaced, you'd receive a whole new device with a whole new device profile. And again, you'd want to go back in into Partner Center or allow the customer to go back in through the Store for Business and then be able to re-register that device. So towards that, as we move along, we see a lot of different pieces. And as we talked about, within the modern manageability slide, we talk about wanting to be able to set up systems that are on demand, as a service, automatic, at least from the view of the customer, and then self-service for the employee. And so we'll see a lot of value in Autopilot towards kind of that enabling factor or those catalysts that help kick off the modern manageability story for your customer that's already either thinking of making an investment into M365 or already has. So, all right, I got two more slides before I'll take a break and look to see if there's any questions. But towards that, what we see is this value proposition that says, hey, there's a hard dollar business value to here, because now we've been able to now ease in the whole process of IT management of the device and having to put corporate images on the device, where we no longer have to have the device shipped from a distributor to an authorized device reseller to the customer and get repackaged at almost every step. Now we see a device that can come straight from the factory, that you as a CSP, maybe again you weren't a hardware bound company in the past, but now you can actually transact a device just like it would be a license, and we can start moving in more into a Windows as a service capabilities, where you're looking at the device just being another component of M365. We lower the total cost of ownership. We remove that IT friction. We provide this modern workplace platform story, which helps to accelerate cloud adoption and cloud compete, as well as we look to products as to, can other products from competitors, do the same things that we're seeing with Surface and future other OEMs that are out there. So towards that, as we're moving into this path, what we essentially see is that we see this iterative co-management story, where we see cloud first towards that, and when we're looking at what does that offer, we see this modern management of cloud-based management and being able to handle things like identity and policies and applications and updates and authentication and content delivery. That's all out there towards that. Now, these slides will be available to you, so hopefully you'll take advantage of them and actually use them in presentations to customers, because I think it helps to tell that story of, where does Autopilot kind of fit within that ecosystem of the modern manageability story. So towards that, I'll take a break and see if there's any questions so far about what we've talked about.
Cool. Yeah, thanks, Frank. I really enjoyed the visuals there. We do have a couple questions. One is there a target quarter, excuse me, for when Autopilot will include on-premises support?
That should be within, I think we're targeting that towards RS5 timeframe. So that would be essentially the fall of this year.
Okay, thanks. And let's see, we have a few that just came in. Just to confirm, Partner Center only allows for minimal settings for system startup, so all apps and other settings need to be pushed via Intune. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, there is a basis that, I like to think of Partner Center as the gateway to all of the other tool sets. Partner Center allows that trust to be established between the partner and the customer. Essentially, there's almost like a letter that can be sent out from Partner Center that says, will you trust me with your Azure AD environment? And then the customer goes into their Office 365 tool and then accepts that and allows them access to their Azure AD environment for enrollment of these devices into that space. From there is a lot of capability that you can do in Partner Center, but it also gives you links to where, if the customer so desired, they would allow you links to go in and manage their actual Intune AD environment, Office 365 environment, all these other pieces, and they can actually set up almost like proxy admin accounts for the partner. And so that allows for much greater managed services to be built out and kind of a better trust of IT relationship to be established between the partner and the customer. But you do have to be a CSP in order to access Partner Center.
Okay, Thank you. And are you charged per megabit or gigabit for outbound application deployments with Intune, or is that included in the cost of EMS?
Yeah, that's included in the cost of EMS, for the management. So it's all part of the customer's M365 subscription along that line.
Gotcha. That leads to another question. The prereqs for Autopilot,
Yeah.
Microsoft 365, is it Office 365, E3, et cetera?
Yep, I've got a slide that'll cover exactly that. So we'll go over that in just a second.
Okay, cool. Two more.
Sure.
Can you auto upgrade from Windows 10 Home, Pro, or Enterprise?
You can upgrade from both S, Pro. I don't know about Home because it doesn't have maybe some of the enterprise hooks in it, but I don't want to say no. I'm not an expert in that line of Autopilot around Windows, but I do know essentially you can go from Pro to Enterprise as a license as part of Autopilot, which is kind of a cool functionality. The other cool functionality I think of Autopilot is that you do not have to give the customer admin access in order to set up or install applications or other pieces. When they log in, and we'll actually show you how it works, but when they log in, they're logging in as themselves. And through the power of Autopilot, it can actually do many admin level settings, policies, and configurations, like changing from Pro to admin, but the user is not an admin on the device. So there's certainly power to that without the ability for corporate IT to kind of come in and make changes on the device. So.
Okay, great. And can we push third-party apps?
Yes. So it all depends on the capability of the MDM that you're using, but you absolutely can push full-blown, 32 or 64-bit applications through Intune. So a lot of this you have to think of as Autopilot just being that enrollment front-end capability, but that the real functionalities are coming in the investment the customer is making into EMS and the tools like Intune or other MDMs that they're using. So don't think of Autopilot as like the kitchen sink. Just think of it as like the front door, and then it gets you further into the more of the modern manageability story of all the tool sets the customer already had available to them through Intune and other capabilities.
Great point. And last one before I let you move on.
Sure.
As I understand from one OEM, is that the OEM will register the devices in the customer Azure Active Directory. Can Microsoft do that as well, or does it have to go through a partner?
So when we talked about, let me back up a slide or two. So when we talked about essentially the Microsoft Store for Business is the exact same tool and structure as Partner Center. The value of Partner Center is Partner Center allows you to see multiple customers' AD environments, where the Store for Business is just a single instance of that that viewpoint. And so when it comes to management, Willie, can you repeat the detail of the question, because
Sure.
I want to make sure I cover that correctly.
As I understand from one OEM, is that the OEM will register the devices in the customer AAD. Can Microsoft do that as well, or does it have to go to a partner?
Yeah, so the reason that I brought this up was that we provide a higher degree of trust to our CSP partners to come through Partner Center than we do to customers to come through the Store for Business. Through Partner Center, all you need is just the serial number, the OEM, which in this case would be Microsoft, and the product ID, which would be, say, Surface Pro. And with those three things in a CSV file, you can amass a number of devices, like hundreds or thousands of devices, in through Partner Center at one time. The customer endpoint, they're missing one thing, and they're missing the device ID. They can, even if they had the serial number, the OEM ID, and the product name, that's not enough for Store for Business. The Store for Business also wants what's called a device ID, which is essentially this 4K hash. They can harvest that through Ubi by running a PowerShell script and recording it, which allows them to take that or they can actually contact Microsoft with their CSV file, and then we in turn, if we are given like proof of purchase, we can then provide them their device IDs that they can now enter into the fourth entry point that they need on the customer side. So the customer needs 4 points of data, including that 4K hash ID, where the partner only needs 3. And the reason just being is just it's a value of trust of saying that, we know that the device is coming straight from the factory to the partner, so therefore there's a trust there. We don't know what happened or where the customer got the device or what happened to it because it didn't, the partner's not doing the registration, so the customer is trying to circumvent that. So therefore, they need to provide more data to us in order for us to really give them the keys to unlock their devices and get them enrolled into Autopilot. So I'm hoping that explains that kind of difference and the value of you pitching to your customers like, hey, we'll take care of this for you. And then, by the way, we could also do other manageability services that are out there as well. So,
okay.
All right.
Cool.
All right.
Thanks.
All right, let's keep moving. I'm going to run through a couple slides real quick. These are slides really more for you to use in customer presentations, but they really go through the customer idea. We've talked about a lot of this, but to the customer, it's all about ease of deployment and management. It's cloud. It's driving down the TCO, centralized cloud management, self-service of user devices. We do say that Surface and Autopilot's best. Hey, I wrote that. I built this slide. I'm in Surface marketing, so I'm going to say that, right? But the reason that we stand behind that is because when Windows engineering builds Autopilot, they build it on Surface and they test on Surface. Certainly they test on the other OEM devices, but we've been the first to market both for Autopilot in the market space and now Autopilot in the channel, in the consumer or commercial channel, which is why I'm talking to you now. So, we are driving and enrolling and, kind of trying to focus on partners that are able to offer services. And so we'd like to say that, hey, we've built out a global partner channel that enables cloud solution providers to offer Autopilot deployment services. That's you. That's happening right now. We build Microsoft devices that enable each Surface device to be Autopilot ready, meaning we harvest those 4K hash and we store those and we provide those to you through Partner Center, or we provide them to the customer through more of a manual process as well. And that allows them to unlock the device to get it enrolled into Autopilot. We essentially look to it as Microsoft is your single point of contact for enterprise grade global support of Surface, Autopilot, and M365. It's essentially one number to call. That doesn't stop you from doing triage and other services on your end, but bottom line, if there's a problem with Autopilot or the device or any M365 component, Microsoft is the location to go to for support. Towards that, we talk about this idea that, it builds this golden path. There's no need for supply chain integration, towards that. You don't have to unwrap the device and put a gold image on it. There's no need for IT to touch the devices, and now you have this centralized cloud management and self-service of the device. That's definitely a golden path that we're trying to move towards for all of our devices across all of our OEMs. It's a big sell towards Microsoft 365. Certainly, we present Autopilot as a kind of front door, but within that door, you have to have things like Microsoft Store for Business and Intune and Azure Active Directory, and then follow on, of course, with Windows 10 at the user level, and then Office 365 Pro Plus as the main driver for productivity tools that are out there. Throw in EMS towards Intune, and now you've got pushing your customers towards adopting modern manageability practices and selling services and licenses to go along with that. So some very obvious benefits of cost reduction, managed services opportunities for you, and account control as a trusted CSP partner. Again, I won't go through each of these, but there's a lot out there towards why we're pushing this, and it all goes towards how can we increase cross-sell, upsell revenue opportunities within M365 and continue to turn on these capabilities that make it more valuable to the customer. It's a tip of the spear towards moving your customer towards modern manageability. If they're an on-prem customer today, there's the values of Autopilot and cloud-based management may be interesting to them, and certainly maybe looking to do a hybrid model of some cloud-based management, and then how can you as a CSP and a managed partner get them to those different pieces. So for the partner services, we certainly see, Partner Center and enabling the serial numbers and the customer AAD naming, managing Autopilot apps, policies, and settings via Intune and the Store for Business. These are components that you probably are doing today for many of your customers. Manage M365 environment to include device inventory management. So we talked about the whole idea of recycling devices for new teams, retiring devices, or you doing warranty replacements, and how you can take a part in that whole process of the logistics and the inventory management towards that. Providing triage desktop support desk services that take those first calls and then use Microsoft to help back you up. Towards that, selling migration services that go from custom imaging to no-touch Autopilot, and that includes the entire adoption of the modern manageability story, and then develop a customer strategy for moving to modern management. So helping them, and we actually want to help you a little bit with that as well. So so towards that, here we have, which customers are right for Autopilot? Well, the short answer is customers who have an M365 subscription, but we know there's not a lot out there, right? So, what we do know is that there's a higher number of customers that have Azure Active Directory Premium, which is one of the requirements behind Autopilot. It's actually the primary requirement behind Autopilot is that your customer have Azure Active Directory or AAD Premium. Optionally, of course, if they have Office 365, but if they're running it at the enterprise level, they're using it from an O365 for Exchange, in the cloud, and all the other capabilities that are out there. They're likely running some degree of Microsoft Intune or a third-party MDM, and they're using Microsoft Store for Business to manage all their applications and devices that are out there. Now, on the Surface side, we have a GBB, like a global black belt and TSP community, that are helping us to deliver demos. You yourself can get out there and get out to demos.microsoft.com and create a demo tenant, and then be able to show the full value of Autopilot by actually harvesting the 4K hash and actually and enrolling the device straight into your own demo tenant towards that. Now, we are offering a $25,000 per week ESIF funding available for our ADRs and DMPs. Now, on the Surface side, hopefully there's a couple partners out there that are also selling Surface. And so for those, we call ADRs an authorized device reseller. These are the larger managed partners that we have that are of the likes of partners that we have funded headcounts at and are giving both front end and back end discounts, where a DMP is a disti managed partner, and these are partners that are managed by the distributor directly in the U.S. That's either Tech Data, Ingram, or Synix, and so you have a relationship with them for front end discounts. But we were also looking these, in order to qualify for this funding, you need to be a CSP as well. So many of our ADRs and DMPs are CSPs, and probably most of this audience is a CSP. So towards that, where do we start? Right. Well, from a Surface standpoint, what we're looking for is customers who have an existing Surface deployment and an existing M365 deployment, and that's our priority one. That's our low-hanging fruit. We're also looking for active Surface opportunities where they already have existing M365 as well. Now, this could be any OEM chart. So where we're not probably interested is when they're no M365, no Surface, but that doesn't mean that there's not opportunity to harvest and move customers towards that. So when it comes down to it, there's other OEMs and other competitive MDMs as well. But this is where Surface is hunting, and we're going to support you towards that with like these ESIF pieces, where other pieces, you may see value in that because certainly there's value in customers that have a no MDM. But right now we're kind of focused on we're in the beginning starting gates, so we might as well just go for where the grass is the greenest right now. Towards that. We do have prerequisites for using Surface or Autopilot on Surface. We see that as the baseline is Windows 1709. You can put it on 1703, but there's actually a small, from a technical perspective, there's a small problem where 1703 uses what's called a 128 byte hash, where 1709 uses a 4K hash. So with 1703, there's a 1% chance the device is not going to be unique when it enrolls into Autopilot, and because of that, it'll fail Autopilot. And so you as a partner would have to ship the customer another device. We're recommending 1703 or RS2, only for trials and proof of concepts where you have a little bit more of a curated experience. And if something went wrong in that 1% of the time, you could easily get them another device. But if you want to be sure, go with 1709. It's RS3. It's shipping on Surface devices today, and we'll help you out with that. Know that standalone license for each user, you have to have an Azure Active Directory Premium P1 or P2 license and needed to be enrolled in some degree of MDM management across your device. You can get this through a couple of different ways, right? You can either sell them an Enterprise Mobility or Security E3 or E5 license, or M365 E3 or E5, and then optional licenses or Office 365 Pro Plus, because, well, if you're running Windows, I'm not sure why you wouldn't run Office, but I'm sure there's some use cases, there's some scenarios that's the case. So that's why it's optional, but probably I would imagine it's very, very few times you're not going to be running Office if you're running Windows. And then Windows 10 Enterprise E3 or E5, Windows 10 pieces, as another optional license. Now let's talk a little bit about this ESIF that we have out there for your partners, for you. We want to help. We're keyed in. We're all about M365. We think of Surface as the best expression of M365, and therefore we want to invest right along with our brethren within the rest of the company. And so with that, we're offering a $25,000 per week engagement where we would ask for you, the partner, to come in and assess the customer's current environment, show them how to get to an M365 piece, and then we'll pay you to do that. Now, there's a little bit of criteria. It's all around Surface opportunities at 40% and 50 or more devices, and then there's an M365 E3 or E5 opportunity at 40%. For more than $300,000. And so within that, if you can, justify this, then we would ask you to work back with our landing leads or our Surface time zone leads, especially if you're already a Surface partner. That'd be the best part. You likely know how to work back either with your distributor or with your managed, like if you're an ADR, you have a partner development manager you can work back with as well. So know that this is funds that are available for assessment, and then we also offer an equal amount of funding for deployment or proof of concepts that actually deploy M365 and Surface into customers' environments. So not only will we pay you to go out and provide an assessment, but we'll also pay you to go out and deploy Surface into customers' environments for adoption. So more information is out there, and there's actually in the web link that I'm sharing at the end of this deck, there is a link to the to a custom SAL that will show essentially what are some of the options within that 1 week of services. It doesn't need to be a week for $25,000. It could be 3 days for $15,000, and you can customize that SAL as you need fit, and then submit that back into Microsoft and work with either your distributor or your PDM to qualify that. All right. So towards that, we look towards being able to, Autopilot is available today on Surface devices, available on 1703 for trials and 1709 for general availability. And we're looking at other OEMs also working to get Autopilot activated within the channel, and we expect to see that during the first half of 2018. So by the end, I think as we move into the Inspire July timeframe, you'll see a lot more talk from each of the OEMs like HP and Lenovo and Dell towards their own versions or their kind of alignment into Autopilot. So I will take a break before I kind of run through this last section, which just kind of goes through how do you register a device via Partner Center and some other capabilities, but I want to see if there's any questions.
Yes, thanks, Frank. There is one that I forgot. I skipped over last time, but let's see if I can find it.
If not, we can take it at the end.
Okay, here it is. Will you be able to join on-prem AD using a VPN profile soon? So
that goes towards the question of on-prem, like both System Center Manager and then AD. Right now, I think that's still slated more for an RS5 or time frame, which would be, late fall of 2018.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's all the questions that we have currently.
All right. So let's run through what the process looks like as a partner going into Partner Center. And so this is Partner Center. Hopefully you're using it today. It allows you to essentially manage customer AD environments, and it allows you to, in this case, add a bunch of devices. And so we go out and we add devices. We browse for a CSV file. Inside that CSV file is going to be the serial number of the device, the OEM manufacturer, in this case Microsoft, and the OEM product type. We could say, hey, Surface Pro or Surface Laptop. And so we open that file, that CSV file, and then we just essentially add it as a standard deployment group. And so when we add it, now we actually see that now there's what you'll see all these devices now added to that customer's environment as this Surface Book, and it'll list the serial number, Windows product ID, and the date that it was added. So now this is the view as they've gone into a particular customer's environment and added it to their AD environment through Partner Center. That's what you have, and you're actually looking at Contoso's, like Contoso's the customer, and this is their AD environment that you're adding these devices to. So it's pretty simple, right? Essentially, what's just taken place is that we've gone in through Partner Center and we've registered these devices. Now the next step would be either you have access to the customer's Intune and other AD infrastructure, and you can go in and actually do this work of IT admin by configuring Autopilot, meaning setting an Intune profile onto it and other things. Or if you don't have that level of access yet, you haven't taken over those managed services yet, certainly the customer can do it, and the customer does it through the Microsoft Store for Business. So this is what that looks like on the customer's end. But also know that if you had the ability to do this, this would also be what you would see on Partner Center. So because, like I said, the tools have a very similar look and feel. It's just that the Store for Business is only focused on the customer's AD environment, where Partner Center allows you to get into multiple customers' AD's environments. But in this case, now what they see is, as soon as you registered that device, they now see this Surface Book sitting out there that they could have. And so they go into Autopilot deployment, and then they create a new profile. And then once they've created a new profile, they can do a number of things. They can skip privacy settings. They can disable the local admin creation. They can create a non-admin or an admin feature sets. And then they can do a number of kind of baseline policy settings. The really finite detailed stuff is all in Intune, but the kind of the overall capabilities are here at a higher level. So now we go in and we create that, and we apply these non-admin profile to that particular Surface Book that the customer just bought. And now you have the profile called non-admin assigned to this Surface Book. And so the out-of-box experience goes a little bit like this, and this is kind of where the magic happens, right? So the customer, the end user, receives their device. Now, they could receive their device anywhere. They could receive their device and be sitting, on their couch in their house, connected to their own Wi-Fi. If it's an LTE device, they could actually get onto LTE to configure it. They could be sitting in a Starbucks. They could be sitting in their corporate environment. It doesn't matter anymore, right? That's the beauty and the capabilities. And so they'll go through answer a couple base questions towards country and language and keyboard layout, and they'll hit, and then they'll need to connect to some degree of a Wi-Fi. If I had to redo this demo, I would not have them connect to Contoso's guest Wi-Fi. I would just have them connect to like Starbucks' Wi-Fi or something like that, or their own home Wi-Fi, because essentially they connect to it and they have to agree to connect to the network. But what takes place at this point is all of a sudden the device connects to the internet, right? And when the device connects to the internet, some magic happens. The device calls home to Microsoft, and Microsoft says, oh, you're an Autopilot device, and according to your device ID, you're registered to Contoso. So I better hand you off to Contoso's AAD environment. And so Contoso's AAD environment says, oh, I've got a new device. It's calling home. And so now I need to push down policies and settings and a welcome screen. And so it pushes down this welcome screen. Now this welcome screen is customizable through Partner Center or through the Microsoft Store for Business. And you can put your own logo in there, welcome to Contoso, and enter your email address. But the beauty here is that all of a sudden, that raw device that has gone from the factory to the customer's hand has done a call home and all of a sudden assigned and handed everything over to the customer's Intune environment. And now Intune, once the user logs in with their username and password into Contoso, they actually get things started. And so they put in their password, and it goes out and it sets up their account. Now that's pretty magical in some ways for the customer or even from the IT experience, because what all of a sudden happens is you're able to now install custom applications like Dynamics, 32 or 64-bit applications like Office. Now in this case, because it's a Surface, Office was already pre-deployed on the device and just turned on the license on it. But that's another advantage of being able to kind of deploy, Surface devices and other pieces along that line. Now I'm sure other OEMs do something similar as well. But you can actually install 32-bit applications, expense report tools, other corporate shortcuts that are on there. It's turned the device from a enterprise or from a professional to an enterprise based version of Windows, and now we're able to utilize the device. And so now we go into, oops, I'm trying to get through this slide. Next. There we go. So now that's the end user's experience. And so again, the prerequisites from a Windows Autopilot, just to kind of reinforce this: Azure Active Directory Premium. They need to have some degree of MDM that they're using. Optionally, they can use Office. And, they drive everything through Microsoft Store for Business or via the partner activating Autopilot via Partner Center. We again say, hey, trials for 1703 are good, but if you're going to do a wider scale deployment, use 1709. It's just a reinforcement slide. So within here, it just goes through the steps that we just went through of how do you activate Autopilot during a pilot period? Well, you have to get a list of hardware. You go into the Store for Business, different components along that line. I'll let you go back and kind of read this because we're kind of running out of time. And steps to activate Autopilot for public availability. And so within the roadmap for partners, we just want to essentially go over the idea that in the future, today, starting on 1709, a CSP can register devices to an organization via Partner Center. So today, if you're a CSP, you've got this capability. It's not like we're creating a new partner type or doing, new pieces. And Partner Center also provides APIs where a number of you are using more of your own tool, but there's API capability to actually take all those types of things that you're doing through Partner Center and build that into your own tool set. So I want to thank you for doing that. Know that there's a lot of information out there towards this, and there's a bit of information in the appendix. I've got my name and number in here, and I believe that the deck that we're providing also has a link back to this particular deck as well. So I would definitely ask you to take advantage of the resources that are available. Get out onto demos.microsoft.com, create a trial tenant, and kind of learn how to deploy Partner Center or Autopilot devices through Partner Center and the Microsoft Store for Business in those particular tenants. It's actually pretty simple if you're already doing CSP-oriented type of work. It's a bit of heavy lifting if you aren't, but this is kind of the modern manageability that we're all moving towards. So Willie, I'll take time for our last couple of questions.
Cool. Thanks. Frank, that was really good. Really great presentation, great information. There are a couple questions, but before I go into them, I know some people may end up dropping. Thanks for joining. The call deck will be available at our Yammer community site, aka.ms/MW Partner Community. And the call recording will be available in a day or two via our YouTube channel at aka.ms/MW call recording. So with that being said, again, I want to say thank you for joining, and I'll go ahead and ask these last two questions that just came in.
Sure.
Um, One is, where does the CSV source from? The OEM?
Yes. So the CSV file would, in this case of Surface, I don't know much about other OEMs, but I do know about Surface, would be is that we ship our devices to distributors, and that the distributor would be able to build out the CSV file, which would hold the serial numbers, product ID, and OEM manufacturer, in this case Microsoft. So the it does come from Microsoft in essence, but really it's something that the ADD, the authorized device distributor, in this case in the U.S. Ingram, Synnex, or Tech Data, would put together for you and then send to you for you to enroll into Partner Center.
Okay, great. And the last one, it seemed like it might be an access issue or I guess rights issue. Uh, uh, One person mentioned they're in Partner Center and can't see devices.
So that there, we probably just need to take that one offline and see if there's something about the trust that's occurred between the customer's AD environment or AAD environment and Partner Center. I mean, there's certainly a kind of a handshake. It's almost like a federation that takes place that allows you access into that. And then if there's issues with a particular CSV file and how it's formatted, know that one piece of advice: don't use Excel when looking at these CSV files because Excel will strip the leading zeros off of the serial number, and Microsoft does use leading zeros on Surface. I imagine some other OEMs do as well. So when you're looking at it, Notepad or other things are likely a better path for that. But it may be something interesting with the format of that CSV file as well. So.
Okay, cool. We can follow up with that one offline.
Sure.
And that's all that we have. We are at time. So again, like I mentioned, the call recording will be, the call deck will be available shortly at our Yammer community. Call recording will be available in a day or two. Once you do get the presentation, make sure you look at the other solution area calls that are going on, and if any of those solution areas interest you, be sure to register for those calls that are occurring on a monthly basis as well. Again, thanks for joining today, and I appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Willie.
Thanks, Frank.
Bye.
Bye-bye.